So Shriekshow is definitely a little all over the place, for better and for worse. But I'm definitely here to explain all of that. So let's jump into the review, folks, right now. What's going on, folks, and welcome back to the channel today for another review. And today we're going to be reviewing the film Shriekshow, which is going to be available sometime this year because I really could not find a release date, but I was able to check out a early screener of it, and I will say that I have a lot of thoughts here. My first thing is I do not know where did I miss the memo that this was an anthology, because at one point I was like, what? What is happening? And the biggest thing for anthologies for me, especially within horror, when you typically jump from one story to the next, there is some major, there's some either major title screen or transition or just some resetting point. And I feel like, unless I'm just completely was blind, that they went from one story to the next and was just like, almost like it was linear storytelling, which is problematic because you're just like, wait, what? And even between the stories, the tone is different. A lot of things are different, but you kind of like want an indication to know you're going from one story to the next. And I thought what the perfect idea would have been to reset by going back to the ringmaster. Now the ringmaster, so you got these four, you have these four teens essentially. They're not teens, they're older than that. They're like 20 something, we'll just say. They all dressed up for Halloween. They were going to go to this abandoned carnival, and when they get there, they realize that, and the reason they go in there, because people go to abandoned things because they think it's haunted, photo shoots, or to mess around. And I don't know, maybe it's a little bit of all of that. Maybe not the photo shoot part, which only leaves to mess around and because they think it was haunted. Whatever. In this case, they ended up coming into encountering a ringmaster who's basically trying to set up this whole, abandoned carnival and whatnot. But in the meantime, while he's doing so, while he's trying to set up his whole little thing, he said, I'm gonna tell y'all stories, 3 stories at that. And the thing about it is that, again, I just don't, there's 2 things. First of all, I feel like the emotional build that we kind of get with the teens beforehand really was a momental builder for where the story was going to go. And so we got away from them for so long, as if like the story in regards to the teens were only in the beginning and at the end, which means for a film that is close to 2 hours now, you got a middle chunk of just the different stories that they're telling. And that's fine, but it's just like, I don't feel like I should have been introduced to those people in the beginning, especially with the whole like foreshadowing of everything happening. And then we have to kind of wait to the very end for the resolve. Like, if you're going to build something, we should just kind of just go with it. You know what I mean? It's like going up a slope on a roller coaster and then getting to the top, and then the roller coaster just stops and you're just like, what am I doing here? Whatnot. But with that being said, I think that Brad Twigg is very unique in his storytelling, and that ain't problematic at all. I do know he has a cult following, so I know a lot of people are fans of his work. This is the first project I've checked out, and I don't think it's a bad film. I just think that I wish I would have had a more concrete understanding that it was an anthology, and the transitions between each story. And I think by resetting back to the ringmaster would have been much of a better tactic for this one. And also because of the different stories and whatnot, this thing uses a ton of classic horror tropes. And there's also a lot of similarities to American Horror Story, Creepshow. So, I was a fan of that one. I know a lot of people wasn't, but I was. But yeah, there's a lot of similarities to that, I'll say. And then, independent films, certainly can tell there was production blenders, shall I say, especially with the sound. I got to tell you that the sound mixing was my issue with this film. It was one particular story where I swear one person was talking in the bucket. It was just unbearable, just the sound quality of it. And then he's low, then the other person's peaking pretty high, and it's just kind of like, what? And I also think in terms of just the horror tropes that this film kind of uses, I also feel like it used some old school, let's say early 80s horror films aesthetics and vibes, which to a point, I think if this film was actually shot on film and not digital, this also would have been like a very good move as well. I don't think it's not a knock on the film, but I would absolutely think that if it had like that would have been interesting. It's definitely much harder to film with and to edit, so by all means I'm not trying to create any extra work for anybody, but I think if they did, that would have probably been really dope. But it's a very much a genre film, and I think the aesthetics and everything is all definitely a very particular thing. And I really gotta say that while it did take a little bit for the drama and the dilemma of the film to kind of really show face, because yeah, with the storytelling and whatnot, it's like, oh, it's a story, but also remember, like, there is still something at stake because we kind of built it up in the beginning. Yeah. And one of the stories, I definitely had a little bit of issues with the performances. Like, there was this whole cop thing kind of going on here, and I'm not gonna really point anybody out, but there was two cops, and one person definitely gave me cop vibes, and one person absolutely didn't. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, please, like, convince me a little bit, But also, I gotta say that also was probably one of my favorite stories, because I thought one of the performances of the two was actually one of the best performances of the film. So, that's my little thing with kind of being nice about that and whatnot. The other thing too is I will say that, like, I think that, actually going back to that, I also thought that there was surprisingly some really good hand-to-hand combat. Like, there's a little bit of action going on in this, and I was like, hey, that's not what I was expecting, but it was pretty solid. And it also kind of felt like one of the most realistic parts of the film. Like, forget the whole demonic baby that's in this and whatnot. I actually thought that, like, the response to the situation felt really, like, legit. Like, I think I would have responded in the same way and whatnot, but there's that. But I keep wanting to stress that I wish we would have focused on the 4 20-something-year-old folks a little bit more, or like story combating them. I know it would have made the runtime significantly longer, but like, I still would have liked to keep that emotional build with them, because once we actually got back to them, I was kind of like, all right, well, yeah, I guess they're still there. Oh, what's the issue? Oh yeah, whatever. Anyway, there was a lot of parts of this film and I was like, oh, okay, what the hell is going on? Because it does take some very risky chances within the story, and I think it's cool. And I think, again, cult following, so I think you can take and do risky things such. There was definitely a story where there was boobs in it, and I was not expecting that. So with that being said, there was some very sexualized moments in this film that I just wasn't expecting. With that being said, there was some very insane killing going on here, and the gore and the blood splatter was absolutely just pouring it on, and whatnot. Other than that, again, I keep it short here. I think beyond the sound mixing, I think the film pretty much does come together very good. Yes, it definitely has some, the acting is definitely very like that, a little bit all over the place, where like some people really stood out, some people really stood out in the wrong way. But I think for the most part, I definitely enjoyed it. I think it definitely is worth a watch. I wouldn't be surprised if Shudder took a look at this film, because this definitely feels much like a film that I've seen before, and I think this film definitely has an audience, and I think that for any folks that this is even sounding appealing to, you should totally check it out. And I should definitely, in terms of other things I want to give credit to, I thought the costume designs were really good. The special effects, especially with like the makeup and stuff with the clowns and the gore, I thought that was really, really good. Like, really good, to be honest. And I, again, talking about the main group here, that's when some of those aesthetics really came to life, and I was really, really impressed. So like, yes, this film definitely has some good moments, some good makes in terms of the production. And ultimately, I think it's a solid film. Just, you know, a few knocks with the sound mixing that could have been better. Acting, there's some, like I said, some notable goods, some notable bads, and overall, I thought the pacing was also good too. I was very much entertained throughout the film. I just wish that I would have known it was an anthology, because I was kind of confused by the second story. Like, wait, what? Is this happening linear or like what? Because like you were not really seeing the transactions between one to the next. So transitions, I keep saying transitions, folks. So, but yeah, totally go out the way to go look for this film, Shriekshow, which apparently is going to be available soon. I know they had a world premiere and screening, and there's other folks that have checked it out. Again, I've had the opportunity to check out a screener, so I know it must be on its way, if not available now. But however you find it, totally do. Jump in the comments, let me know your thoughts about it. And as always, stay tuned for more reviews very soon. Big old bell.